Welcome to the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast with Jeremy and Trevor, the podcast that's all about hunting, fishing, grilling, and chilling out and having a good time in the outdoors.
Hey guys, a quick intro before we start the podcast. Can you guys go please give us a like on all of our social media and make sure to subscribe and like the podcast and rate us 5 stars if you can. It'd really help us out. We're Cast Blast Grill Chill on all social media platforms. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Hey guys, this is going to be a 4-part series of podcasts starting with just Trevor and myself on the first episode, explaining how we find places to hunt and what kind of lands we hunt and the types of lands to hunt. Part 2 will be an interview with a member of Texas Parks and Wildlife on public hunting, big game draws, postcard hunts. In Part 3, we will have Onyx Maps on to explain how using their online public-private mapping system can help you be a more productive hunter and find places to hunt. Part 4 is the Beyond. We are trying to get a guest on to talk about out-of-state hunting, both the West, draws, tags, and point systems, because neither Trevor or myself are experienced much in hunting outside of the state of Texas. Texas is more than 95% private land. Lease prices go up every year and are becoming harder to find. But we all own a large amount of land in Texas. It's our public land. I didn't always know about hunting public land and didn't know it was even an option. So I will humbly ask this of all of us who use public land, be it for hunting, fishing, camping, or just enjoy the outdoors. Leave it better than you found it. Even the simple act of picking up trash in the parking area. Just do a little to help ensure that we get to use these lands for a long time to come. If you enjoy hunting and fishing, especially on public land, consider joining backcountry hunters and anglers. They help us make sure that we will continue to have a place to hunt and fish. And on top of that, they're just a bunch of like-minded people who are good folks. All that being said, this podcast series is going to piss some people off, and I understand and get that. But the public land we hunt and fish on doesn't just belong to you and I. It belongs to all of us. And all of us means exactly that, all of us. It belongs to every American citizen. Our public lands are available to be used by anyone who wishes to use it. So that means the hikers, campers, bird watchers, trail runners, hunters, fishermen, everyone. So we need to be the best stewards of this land and make sure that we take the best care of it as hunters and fishermen. We need to be courteous and polite to the other users of this land. We all have a right to use this land, but we need to show the non-consumptive users that we are the best conservationists and use the land as we have a right to, and encourage others to use this land and to leave it better than they found it every time they use it. Thanks, guys. Alrighty, Trevor, with all that said about public land, don't you have some numbers that you found online about the amount of public land in Texas, just kind of raw numbers?
Yeah, this comes from backcountrychronicles.com, and I was searching for just a general number of, just give me something generic of, how many acres of public land are in Texas. And, when I Googled that, it came back all sorts of funky, and I had probably 30 different answers. I liked this one from this website. He had a table laid out of all the different states, and it was nice because he got all the main ones in there, but there are some things missing from this that we're going to add in on this episode. So we're going to start with total acres in Texas. Now that is just the entire state of Texas. It's roughly 167,188,000 acres. Now, the U.S. Forest Service has 755,000 acres. BLM land is 11,000 acres. State-owned is 825,000 acres. And the land open to hunters is 1.591 million acres.
That's a fair chunk of land. I mean, for a state that's reported to be anywhere from 2 to 4% public land, that's still a lot of land. And
Yeah.
didn't you have there was some kind of cool little factoid that you had about how much acreage per person that was?
Yeah, so it's about 1% available to hunt, or 0.1 acre per resident. So meaning that each person owns about a tenth of an acre. So that's kind of a cool little add on there. That's why I like this table because it kind of breaks it down like that, and I like to see that I own a tenth of an acre. So woohoo!
Yeah, we all own a tenth of an acre. Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
what's nice is that tenth of an acre is spread over what'd you say, 1.591 million? Call it 1.6 million acres.
Yeah, basically, 1.591. So
So basically,
that's a lot of acreage, man. And when people talk about Texas and their public land, they're saying, the percentage of land is small, which it is percentage wise. But Texas is such a big state that we can make up a lot of acreage in that whatever small percentage that is exactly. I've heard a couple of different numbers thrown out there, but that's still a lot of acres in Texas.
yeah, and I like the fact that our tenth of an acre we own just kind of follows us around wherever we go on that roughly 1.6 million acres.
Yeah, it's almost like squatters' rights type of thing. Wherever you go and hunt, there you go. There's your little tenth of an acre to hunt around you.
Exactly. Now, if we can just keep the guy from coming up at the tree stand right next to us or coming parking their duck boat right next to our duck boat, it would be perfect.
Yeah, right? In a perfect world.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of ducks and deer, I was kind of blown away by the things that we could hunt in Texas. I knew there was a whole lot of stuff that we could hunt in Texas. We obviously got deer and all those things that everybody knows about. But after digging a little bit around, and I knew about quite a few of these things, but I was surprised to find a few. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a long list out there of some crazy stuff that we can hunt. And being Texas, there's a lot of exotics on there, which you wouldn't think about on public land a lot of times. But here in Texas, we have that, and it's not high fence. I mean, it's just like going out and hunting a whitetail. If you're in the right area, you could run into some of these exotics that are on this list. I don't know if you want to go down the road of reading off this list, but
yeah,
I think it's worth it.
yeah, I think we definitely should. We got things that live in the water like alligators and frogs, and then we got a whole bunch of big game species. We'll start with a few exotics here. We got aoudad, axis deer, gemsbuck, scimitar oryx, nilgai. We got some feral hogs, which we all know we got plenty of those. We got white-tailed deer, javelina, mule deer, pronghorn, turkey, bighorn sheep, and another one here. This was on Texas Parks and Wildlife in one of the draw hunts. It says a water buck. So I'm guessing that's a water buffalo from Asia is what I'm guessing that is. And then we got a whole host of small game, squirrel, predators, and fair bearers, bobcats, cougars, coyotes, foxes, raccoons, etc. All those little critters that you can run with dogs and all kinds of stuff along those lines. And then we got a whole flight of birds you can hunt. We can hunt dove, ducks, quail, pheasant, geese, crane, and there's probably some more things on there that I'm just not thinking of in this moment.
Yeah. Now, that's a huge list, man. And what we're going to kind of do in this podcast is break down some of the types of public lands in Texas, how you're going to be able to hunt them. A lot of that intro spoke to what we're going to be going into depth in, and all the different types of lands, what you need to do to hunt them. And you can hunt a lot of these game animals on this list in all of these places. Now, they're all going to have their special regulations, so make sure you're up on that. But do you want to start off with some types of public lands in Texas?
Yeah, these are going to be like the types of land that we have in Texas that we're allowed to hunt and fish on. And, any place you can hunt and fish, you can, unless they close the area for hunting, you're allowed to recreate otherwise on them. You can hike, bird watch, run. Some places you can camp.
Yeah.
There's public land. It's all of our land. We're free to use it, providing it's within the regulations and the time of year that it's allowed on these places. But there's many different land managers in the state of Texas that manage our public land. But we'll start with national forests and grasslands, and those are both going to be administered by the U.S. Forestry Service. And then,
next is going to be the like National Seashore, National Park, National Preserve, and those are going to be kind of managed by the National Park Service.
yeah, And like the National Seashore, the Padre Island National Seashore, you would think that would be, Texas Parks and Wildlife or something else, but that's actually a national park is who has the actual governing control of that. And then we also have a extensive national wildlife refuge system in here in Texas, and it's all managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department. And then we also have the military bases, and they're obviously, governed by the U.S. military and whichever branch of the service is on that military, be it Air Force, Coast Guard, Army, Navy.
Yep. And then we're going to go into the wildlife management areas, the WMAs. And this is, depending on where it is, it can be governed by a couple of different people. Is that correct?
Yeah. Wildlife management agencies are probably the most complex one because they can be managed by Texas Parks and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Forestry Service, because many of the national forests have a WMA cut out of them. A lot of the state parks have a WMA that's cut out of them. And so they're all jointly and conjunctively managed kind of all together. But there's also a couple other types of land that we have in Texas available to hunt. We got the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer land. That's a lot of your lakes, from east, the border of East Texas all the way through kind of central Texas. The vast majority of those are Corps Engineer lakes. So that's all managed by the U.S. Army Corps Engineers, and they have their own sets of regulations that you got to go by. Mm-hmm. And then we also have state parks, which, believe it or not, there's many state parks that offer hunts inside of the state park. And that's all managed by TPWD. And then one of the last types of public land we have available to us is probably one of the coolest, and it's the partnership on private land that TPWD does through your APH for dove and small game. Ducks as well, and there's a few other things that your rabbits and hares, but it's mostly small game leases that are available to hunt, and that's all managed by Texas Parks and Wildlife and private owners.
Yeah, and that's private landowners that a lot of times, most of the time, or at least from the private landowner to the state, and that's going to be covered under your APH. And we're going to go into every one of these and say, just generally what it is and what you need to hunt there.
Exactly. I guess kind of the next thing we should kind of go to is kind of like the means and methods, the kind of how-tos and the things you can do to expand your season on these public lands, because it's not an open and shut, grab your rifle and go hunting on a lot of these places. You really have a lot more options to hunt in a lot of these places and to better your chance at getting an animal by picking up a bow or a muzzleloader. And a lot of the Corps Engineers are shotgun only. You can't rifle hunt them. So you've either got to bow hunt them or shotgun hunt them.
Yeah, which actually is how we kind of got more interested in archery, is trying to take advantage of a lot of these public land opportunities. And we felt like that was a super important thing for us because, first of all, we want an extended season for archery season. And, I picked up a muzzleloader this year and extended my season a little bit further with muzzleloader. And all of that was public land that we hunted this year. Aside from Jeremy went up to Arkansas once, but we're talking about Texas here. And so in Texas, I hunted public land all year this past year. Jeremy, I think you're the same, correct?
With the exception of my trip up to Arkansas, yeah, 100% public this year.
Yeah,
and the one guided goose hunt I went on, that was on leased ground.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, like you said, picking up a bow, picking up a muzzleloader, it's just ways to expand your opportunity. So being versatile in all of these different, kinds of means and methods of harvesting an animal opens up a ton more stuff for you.
Yeah, definitely. And then, as far as getting onto these public lands and going out there to hunt, you've got to be kind of flexible. You got to be able to hunt from a ground blind, a tree stand, building a brush blind, boat blinds if you're hunting waterfowl, and then be willing to get in on the permit blinds. There's a lot of draws that the Corps Engineers does, and different governing bodies where you put in for either a blind location for a deer stand or a waterfowl blind, or even like an entire unit for a given period of time during a block that they block out for you to hunt. So you need to be, flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're going to go into draws and where to find those. And we're going to have a lot of links available to you so you can refer back to some of this and use this episode in our show notes as a tool off the Cast Blast Grill Chill website.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like I said in the intro, there's so much out there that's not really well known that I'm trying to take everything that's out there and condense it into one basic how-to. I'm not going to name out the spots that I hunt and where I go hunt. That's on you to get on, your different ways that you're going to choose the scout and go find places to hunt and break it down and where you want to go. But if you have that, this will show you at least the areas that are available and how to go find the areas that are available. And then the other thing is, accessing this public lands. You have as many different ways to access this properties as there are types of properties to hunt. You have trailheads, boat ramps, parking areas, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes to that. It goes back to, like I was saying, be courteous and be polite, and trying to leave the area better than you found it, like I said in the intro.
Absolutely, man. I completely agree.
Also, make sure that you're packing the right way for whatever you're choosing to hunt, whether it be exotics, deer, hogs, waterfowl, whatever you're going for. Pack accordingly. Make sure you have the stuff that you need to get on these hunts, because a lot of these places, it's not a 5-minute run down the road to Walmart or wherever to go get an extra piece of hunting gear. Make sure you plan ahead when it comes to doing these hunts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, one of the things that Texas Parks and Wildlife Department is trying to, help people realize that they have these public hunting opportunities. And like you said in the info, hunting isn't for the, the people with all the money in this world. So they're offering a lot of cool programs for new hunters as well. One specifically is mentored hunting workshops. Now, it's public hunting opportunities that don't always happen on public land, but are available to hunters. And I'm sure through this course, they're going to show you how to take advantage of all these public opportunities after this workshop. For anyone who's not a hunter and wants to try and become one, but doesn't know where to start, who to ask, or how to get your kids into hunting, they're going to teach you how to be safe. And the mentored hunting workshops are a great way to get started. TPWD, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Association, and several other agencies in Texas are putting on these. And they have tons and tons and tons of links every year. They're on last year's right now on their website, but they're going to be updating that shortly, I'm sure, when they update all the other stuff on their website for the 2018-2019 season. And I'm interested on what's going to be up there, because I like to browse through that and just get jealous that I'm not a new hunter and I can't take full advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, for $25 on those Texas Parks and Wildlife mentored hunts, you get a workshop and a hunt out of it. And they're not just for use. They're for anybody who is an inexperienced hunter and wants to learn and is willing to learn.
Yep.
So I think that's a great thing. And then the Texas Wildlife Association youth hunts are a great option. I was looking at all the turkey hunts they had this spring, and they just, by the time I got around to looking at them, they were already all full up, or they weren't on weekends that were available. And, those are a little pricier. They can range anywhere from, I think some of the dove hunts and stuff are in the, very affordable range, to up to some of the, big game hunts, still being extremely reasonable, $250 or so. And that's, you're going to go out, you're going to go camping, and that's basically a guided hunt for your kid that you get to tag along and experience your child, hopefully, if everything goes right, taking their first, big game animal or waterfowl or turkey, or they have tons of those. And, the links to both of those are going to be in the show notes, the Texas Wildlife Association youth hunts and the TPWD mentored hunts.
Yeah, and what I really like about that whole program is that it's for the kids and it's also for the adults. And I see a lot of guys every year, they're posting on social media saying, hey, looking to get my kid a doe hunt for his first doe. Any outfitters have anything left? Can I get on an MLD tag? Blah, blah, blah. Now, this is a way that you're going to pay a lot less money and you're going to be able to get your kid out there, and it's going to be safety oriented. And that's a big fact. That's going to be a huge factor with the state agency, and that's super important for bringing a first time, especially a youth, out into this world. And I don't have anything bad to say about this program or the draw youth hunts or anything that has to do with what they're doing through the state for the youth.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's probably going to be one of the funnest, safest ways to introduce a youth to the outdoors.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I've been on a lot of deer leases, opening weekend, and inevitably Friday night before the Saturday opener, out comes the brown water and the cards, and everyone's up gambling and drinking whiskey till 4 o'clock in the morning, and everyone still getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go get in their stand. So I don't know about you, but I don't sober up that quick.
Yeah, and that's fine for adults. You're responsible for yourself and everything, but if you're wanting to get your kid out there and get him, make sure he's safe, you can't be, half drunk still and falling over.
Exactly.
I think you're right. I think you're right on saying that this is definitely going to be one of the most fun and one of the safest things that you could take your kid out for a first hunt and get him started right. Get him started with ingraining those morals of this is the way to do things, this is the proper way to do things, and let them build on that from there. I think that's going to grow a crop of excellent, safe hunters that I would love to be on public with.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think that's probably, and on top of that, you're going to places that I'm quite certain are a game-rich environment, and you're going to learn so much in the process. I imagine, on these youth hunts and mentored hunts that they're going to learn tracking, sign, how to call if it's something that you call, and all the little aspects in hunting that took me and you so long to learn being self-taught hunters.
Yeah, and a big part of us was just trial and error. I mean, it was going out to these public places and saying, oh, did this work? Oh, nope, that was a bad idea. Don't do that again. Calling too much, not calling enough, trying to still hunt when you really didn't know how to still hunt, or, whatever that is. For us, it was a big trial and error, but if you can get somebody more experienced than you to help set your kid up for success, there's no reason you shouldn't be doing that in my eyes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well, with all that being said about these mentored hunts and great youth hunt opportunities that I hope everyone, puts in for this coming year, let's get into the most important thing, about public land hunting. What's the one thing that everyone has to have to hunt public land?
Oh, that's a question for me.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be your two things. Your hunting license, number one. And that can be everything from just your hunter's license, and we're going to go through a bunch of different things and all the prices for them, and your hunter's education.
That's exactly right. You can't hunt without either one of those two things. And I've got a kind of a breakdown of the different hunting license types that we have here in Texas. A youth license is only $7, and a resident standard hunting license is $25, and a senior resident is $7, and a trapper's license is $19.
Mm-hmm.
The super combo, which I think is the thing that anyone who listens to this podcast is going to be the thing that they get and want, is it's basically everything. It saves you $18. It's your hunting and fishing license for all waters. It includes all 5 of your, quote, state stamps or endorsements. It's your archery, your freshwater, your saltwater with your red drum tag, your upland game bird, and your migratory game bird.
Yep.
And that's $68 for the super combo.
Yes, sir.
And then if you're senior, it's $32. But one of the great things that Texas does is all disabled veterans, not only residents, but all disabled veterans, get a free super combo, and Texas resident active military get a free super combo. A few of the other things that you may need to hunt depending on what you're hunting, hip, sandhill crane, experimental pronghorn permit, those are all free.
But you will have to get that if you're going to hunt those things, once again, look in your special regulations for whatever piece you're going to be hunting to know if you need to get those permits. And if you have any questions about those regs, just call the game warden in that area.
Or go into your local TPWD office for those things, because HIP, if you're going to hunt ducks, you got to be HIP certified, ducks or geese. Sandhill crane, obviously, if you're going to do sandhill crane. And as far as the experimental pronghorn, I don't know much about that, but I think anyone who's going to hunt pronghorn on public, they have to have that. I'm not 100% certain on that one, though.
For hunting pronghorns on public, so I have no clue.
Yeah, well, maybe we can solve that next year.
Yeah, right. I like it.
And then, if you choose not to buy your super combo, if you're not a fisherman and you don't waterfowl hunt, let's say all you do is archery hunt, or if all you do is bird hunt, your individual endorsements are $7 a piece, for your archery, migratory game bird, or upland game bird. Your federal waterfowl stamp is still $25. You got to have that regardless. This is something that I'm going to put out there that I think anyone, grandparents, mothers, fathers who listen to this, if you have a youth that's got a big life event coming up, like a high school graduation or a college graduation, and you just can't think of what to get them for that event, think about getting them the Lifetime Super Combo. It's $1,800, but it covers them for their hunting and fishing basically for the rest of their life. They will still have to buy duck stamps and things along those lines, but it covers them that everything that your Super Combo covers you now from here till death.
Yeah, so that's covering everything you need statewide for the most part. You would have to get some of those free endorsements on stuff like Sandhill Crane, stuff like we were talking about, just every year going and get them, as well as the federal duck stamp, because that is not through the state, that is through the federal government.
Correct. And then the state of Texas also does something that's kind of cool. For $5, you can get 3 chances to win a Lifetime Super Combo, and I do that every year when I'm putting in for my draw hunts. Is I go ahead and tick that box too, because it's like playing the lottery. But for $5, for $1,800, I'll take my chances for 3 chances in that hat, because I know I spend a lot more money than that at DU banquets and National Wild Turkey Federation banquets and CCA banquets and everything else I go to. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I will throw in here, we're going to talk about it a lot more later, but the APH, I just want to say, cause since we're talking about when you're buying your license, what to add on and stuff like that, the APH is $48 and you'd be purchasing it this time. Now, we'll go into the APH and what it is exactly later, but just keep that in the back of your mind for when we start talking about it in depth, that you would buy it now, and that's $48.
And if you buy your license at Walmart, make sure they understand what you're buying, or else you'll wind up with 4 licenses in your pocket, because it's happened to everybody who buys what I like to call the Glory, Glory, Hallelujah package, which is like $148 or $152.
Something like that.
That's your super combo, your duck stamp, your
APH.
It's basically everything that you can buy that's not a trapping license, and
yep,
the amphibian collecting from the side of the roadway permit.
Yeah.
And for any of you non-Texas residents who want to come here, the general hunting license is $315. And Texas does do some 5-day licenses and some other licenses like that. But they're all very limited. There's a turkey license and there's a duck hunting license. But your basic hunting license that enables you to hunt deer, ducks, small game, everything, is $315. And
hunter's ed, that's $15. You're exempt if you're born before September 2nd, 1971. But you should take it. I mean, you really could benefit from it if you are exempt and you do take this. I learned a lot about it, and that was one of the things that I wasn't crazy about taking it when I'd heard that I had to do the things I was wanting to do. But after actually completing the course, I took a lot of tips from that hunter's education, not just about safety, but about just hunting in general, and identifying factors for specific game they're teaching you in there, how to tell the difference between this, that, and the other. There's a lot of cool tips in there that I think everybody could benefit from, new hunter or, a seasoned hunter.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And did you take yours online, or did you actually go and take a class?
No, I did both the hunter's ed and the I have my boater's ed as well, and I did both of those in the class.
Yeah, they have the hunter's education available online, kind of like the online defensive driving now for when you get a speeding ticket. But this is something I would still highly recommend that you go take the class in person. The people
Yeah.
who teach the class are very knowledgeable. They make the class fun and educational. I'm actually getting ready to go take it again, probably, if not this fall, after the end of this hunting season for my son Thomas. He'll be 11 here in August, and I'm to the point now where I'd be comfortable letting him with a shotgun or with his bow outside of my vocal control, which is the way that he has to hunt with me now. But there's some situations where I feel like now he's mature enough that I could let him be on his own for a period of time.
Yeah. Now, the hunter's education, this isn't just Texas statewide. This is something that can apply to the other states that you're traveling to hunt.
Yes,
So,
the hunter's
and
education in Texas transfers over to, I think, just about any other state with the exception of
believe
maybe a
so.
few.
I believe so. I'm, excuse me, I haven't checked all the states, but yeah, I believe it does transfer over to most. I'm sure there's some special loopholes or something like that. And we're just kind of generalizing on all of this stuff because there are going to be special regs on anything and everything, about public land. So,
Yeah, and here's a good example, for that. For $10, you can get a 1-year deferral on your hunter's education, which is something I've done on multiple occasions whenever I've wanted to take somebody hunting for their first time. Say they wanted to go, I want to take them. Usually, whenever I take someone for their first hunt, it's usually a dove hunt or a duck hunt. So they're obviously going to be within, by the letter of law, they have to be within voice control of a hunter who is hunter education certified, and it can only be used once, the deferral, in your lifetime of hunting.
yeah,
So
that's not one season. That's one event.
yeah, well, it is one season. When you buy it for the year, you're good for that one season, but you can't buy another one the following year. You just can't keep buying a deferral.
Okay, I was under the understanding when I've heard about it. I've never looked into this just because I've had hunter safety and all of that. I've just always thought it was, oh yeah, you pay them $10, you get to go take them out once, try it out. But I guess that's not the fact. So you're buying, this person is buying this $10 deferral for that 1 year, that license date to date.
Yes, from the beginning of September all the way through the end of the following August.
That license year.
Yeah, the license year. And something else to be aware of is some national wildlife refuges require bow hunter education on top of hunter's education. And there's a possibility that that could be the fact on some other Corps of Engineer lands or other places that you hunt. But I know for a fact it was specifically mentioned on TPWD's website that there was a national wildlife refuge that required bow hunter's education on top of the hunter's education.
Yep, that's a good one. Now, some more tips and tricks that we use for scouting, and we're going to start with our maps. Now, I was just telling you before we started this podcast that I was cruising around on some GIS maps in my county over here just the other day and found out a bunch about the landowners around here. This is a great tool for gaining access to property that's not specifically public land. But GIS maps are a great way to scout those public lands and figure out where those boundaries are.
Exactly. And if you ever in question if who is the property owner, the GIS maps will tell you who the property owner is.
Yeah, and
whether it's state land or under private ownership.
Yeah, yep. Now the next one, no secret.
No,
right,
this is the biggest secret. Google Earth. I mean, nobody uses Google Earth to scout anything.
Now let me tell you exactly what Google Earth is. No, no. So Google Maps and Google Earth are different. They're two different entities. So we like to use Google Earth, and the 3D terrain map feature and the timeline feature on Google Earth allow you to see, what the terrain looks like back in the past, and it may give you, you may be able to look back and see what a drought year looks like. If the current picture on Google Maps is not in a drought year, it's in a flood year. That can pose an issue. So on Google Earth, you're allowed to go, if they have the previous satellite imagery, you're able to go back, see what it looks like in different times of the year and different seasons too. So that's cool.
Yeah, some of those Google images, on Google Earth go back to the, all the way back to like the 40s and 30s there. That place where you were looking at buying some land down on the coast, they had images going all the way back to World War II.
When it was an Air Force base or a naval base, I can't remember. But yeah. So there's some old pictures on some of the areas. Back then, if you go look at some of these pictures, you're like, man, I'm better off just going and looking at the place for sure, because this isn't telling me anything. But it's really cool to see some of that.
Yeah, and it's also, I wouldn't use it ever to say, all right, well, cool, I'm just going there, unless I was, going out of state and it was really my only option. But something else that I like to use in conjunction with, the Google Earth is to use, Weather Underground's Weather Archive, because you can go back by year, by date, by month, and look at what the weather was like around that same time, in any particular year. So you can match up on that timeline feature. Say you're looking bow hunting whitetails. So you can go to this piece of property and look on October the 10th. And you find an image from, say, 10 years ago on October the 10th. So you can look at that day and days on either side, for a period of weeks or even months on either side of that image. So well, this year's nothing like that, or, well, shoot, it's been very similar, so the things that I see should be, in theory, similar.
Yeah, and I was actually just doing this probably 2 weeks ago, planning for a mule deer trip in archery season up in North Texas, is looking at the weather from past years, just trying to see what to expect. And a lot of the imagery that I was looking at on some of these mapping tools was not in the fall. It was more in the spring, early summer. So I was able to kind of adjust everything, go compare it to weather, and see kind of what to expect on my trip up there. I've never been up there in person before. It's quite a long ways from my house, so it's not an easy feat to drive up there. So anything that you can do in your power to make it a little bit easier on you before you get out there is definitely a good tool to have in your bag. And, that kind of leads us into the next thing to, help you out, the old paper topographical maps.
Yeah, and not even just topographical maps, just paper maps. I mean, the United States Geological Survey, National Forest maps, state park maps, Corps of Engineer maps. There's 100 different maps out there, and like one of the maps me and you use the most is our National Forest map that we have where we like to hunt out in the National Forest. And it's a topo map, but we really don't use the topographical features on it. But is what we use that map for is the road system.
Yep, and just seeing where can we get away from those roads. And it is nice to have those topo features on there. So once you pick your spot, you say, all right, now I got this, 200-acre chunk of land in between this road and this road. Where should I start? And you can kind of say, oh, well, there's quite a terrain change here, quite an elevation change here. Maybe this is a creek bottom. Okay, let's go check it out. Let's go walk.
Yeah, and, the other thing is that those maps are usually very detail-oriented, and they show you all the areas that are legal hunting areas. And, going back to the road system as well, Google Maps, is great for navigating, between Houston and Austin or New York to L.A. It's real good at that. But how many times have you been on a dirt road that's not really a dirt road, but Google tries to take you down it because, well, it filled it in as a road even though it's somebody's private driveway or something along those lines. So that's why those, paper maps that are put out by the governing bodies of whatever area you're trying to go to are the best things to get around with.
Yeah, and plus, man, shoot, it's just a piece of paper, a large piece of paper. Fold it up, throw it in your pack, and take it with you. I don't always have one, but I always like to have a paper map of some sort. Even if I go to Google Earth and print off the closest thing to what I'm going to be hunting in a general area, so I can just look at it and see, if I don't know exactly where I want to go, and I'm going to say, okay, I think I'm here. Here's this feature on this piece of paper I printed out. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I can't see much, but it's giving me a general overview of, oh yeah, I forgot this was here, and you can refer back to it. And you're not going to have service in these places, so you can't just put Google Earth on your phone, Google Maps on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, that proved real handy for you opening day of bow season this year when, granted, you beat this guy to his spot, but you were hidden so well, and by the time he was up in his tree stand and then he was looking down at you, you were the bigger man and decided to just mosey on and go find another spot.
Yeah, well, I was in the shooting lane too, so I didn't want to get stuck.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about somebody that's going to be coming on, with their product and service here on a future part of this that kind of combines all of these things together in one kind of easy-use package. onX Maps. I can't say enough about their product. I have my new chip sitting in the cart that I will be pulling the trigger on here in a couple of days for my new maps for them for my GPS unit. And whenever you buy the chip for your GPS unit, you also get a free year of their online service. And I can't say enough about the public-private mapping that they do. They're going to be on part 3, but their maps are just fantastic.
Yep, and they're doing so much work to get all this information, and they're using all the resources that we're talking about and so much more, and talking on the phone with all of these people in all these different counties, and they're putting all this info into a easy to use, either on your phone, with service or without, on the desktop, on your laptop, on your GPS, whatever you need to use it on. They're making it easy for you to do that.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's great because whenever you log into the service, say you're sitting at work, you log into it, you use it, you mark a bunch of waypoints, then you go out to dinner and you're sitting around after dinner relaxing, you pull out your phone, all your waypoints are there. Pull out your iPad as you're laying in bed at night, all your waypoints are there. Everything carries over. So,
yep, and we're going to get into it with them about, all the offline mode stuff and everything that it does, man. I've been using it a lot in all my hog hunts after this season, the end of this deer season. I was like, man, why haven't I been using onX Maps? It's like, well, I've been hunting a property where I'm nowhere near the boundaries and stuff like that, and I was kind of in a routine. Well, I've been trying out a lot of new properties. I'm going to be traveling to some new properties this year. So I wanted to start getting familiar with onX, and so I'm subscribed to all their stuff, and I'm enjoying it so far. I have no complaints, so I'm really excited to have them on and pick their brains and maybe get some more tips and tricks that I didn't see in their instructional videos.
Yeah, definitely. And, like you said, the offline mode and the fact that it shows the property lines and the owners of the private that abut to that public. So,
and there's so many cool layers on there that it's endless. It's absolutely endless, and I love it. So
yeah, so
you get all kinds of cool stuff that I think everybody will really think's cool as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a really great podcast. And then probably the most important thing when it comes to really doing any kind of hunting, and something that I used not to be so great at, but I've basically become a slave to doing it now. I make myself do it whether I want to do it or not, but I've gotten to the point now where I really like doing it, and I do it after every hunt, is keeping good notes.
Yep. And that's something that I started doing this year as well, routinely. So I started keeping it in one journal, and I think you do as well. Keep them all in one place, and everything from biometric pressure to what game you saw, what game you harvested, who you're with. I mean, just anything and everything about it. And I have like kind of cheater book that has a place for all these, so I'm not leaving anything out accidentally that I might regret later on. That has all of these categories marked out for me.
Yeah,
I'm
see,
sure
I don't
find something like that on Amazon.
Oh yeah, they have them on Amazon. I just use a old composition notebook, and I just keep notes of the weather before and after the hunt. What the forecast calls for and what it actually was, moon phase and things like that. But the other things I do is I also keep up with like how we access the property, and anything that stood out from that hunt just seemed important or memorable during it. Doesn't even have to be a hunting thing that's memorable. I'll often, like last year, since I was game warden bait, I have a little note that says visited by GW.
Yeah. Yeah, mine are often, things that I'm observing that, I used to make a mental note of, it's more of a, oh yeah, that's weird. What that 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 one deer's licking on that branch and eating those leaves. Okay, make a mental note, then forget about it, a couple months later. And now I can write that down and write down what kind of leaf it was and the time of the year they were doing it, what the weather was like. And after a few years, maybe we'll be able to put together this kind of roadmap for us, kind of a schedule for the deer throughout the year and what they're doing in the area that we hunt.
Yeah, definitely. And then another thing that I've also been doing in these notebooks is not just keeping hunting notes, but I'll also, in between hunts, say all of a sudden I notice a big influx of dove, or I happen to see, not just a single deer, but like a family group of does traveling, or, a bachelor group of bucks moving by. I will put that note at the time that I seen them in my day-to-day life, whether it be at work or, hanging out on the back porch or whatever, that I saw 3 does and 5 fawns traveling together at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. Don't know what's going on, but I'll go, pull up my phone, figure out the moon phase, and just, scratch that and, the moonrise and moonset. Cool. Now I just have
Easton County Almanac.
It's my little deer hunting almanac. It's my little waterfowl hunting almanac. It lets me know when I can expect to see things. Because
that's the whole idea, right?
Yeah, as I build it out over years, I'll know. Well, shoot, by August the 15th, teal starts showing up, or whatever the case may be, as I see these things over the course of years.
Yeah, I know I added to mine what time of year this year we were getting dewberries and blackberries and where to expect to find them, and kind of the weather that I started seeing them ripen in. So that was added to mine, and I hadn't added anything like that before, edible plant wise. It's always game animal related in some type of way, but that's another thing that I think I'm going to start adding in. I didn't do it really consciously. I was like, ooh, I like those, so add it onto the list.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
And then probably the other biggest thing, that helps hunting public land is scouting. And scouting during hunting season, it can be done, but it's hard to do because who wants to be scouting when you can be hunting? So scouting the pre and post season, especially the months leading up to season and immediately after season. The most useful thing I see for hunting public, grab a fishing pole or a camera, and get your boots on the ground where you want to hunt, and start once again adding to your notes.
Yep, I completely agree. I do a lot of bonus hog hunts after deer season to scout. And that's the best of both worlds, where I get to hunt and scout at the same time. Granted, I'm not 100% focused on either one, but it's not something that I'm taking so seriously in either aspect to not enjoy one or the other. So that's a good bonus for me. And I think it is important to do pre and post, not just pre or not just post, because here in Texas, at least, we have a long enough deer season and a weather season wise change that is definitely different in October than it is in January. So that's something I think is important on both ends, so you can get the warm season patterns and the cold season patterns.
Yeah, and also pre and post rut.
And pre and post rut.
Yeah, and things to look for when you're out there scouting is obviously deer beds, trails, feeding areas. If you're scouting birds, where the birds want to be, and make sure you jot those areas where the birds, where you find them, because odds are if you go find them in March and April on the reverse migration, odds are they'll be there when they're coming down south too. So Like I always like to say, scouting's a year-long activity. Be it spring turkey hunting. You should be looking for sheds and deer sign while you're out there on your hunt, taking notes.
Yeah, I mean that's something I'm doing if I walk around like the neighborhood park, man. It's just like that's interesting to me. I want to know what's there.
Yeah,
it's cool. I think that we're one of the only mammals that uses sight on tracks to see what's there when it's not there.
Well, yeah, because our nose is awful compared to every other mammal.
Don't talk about my nose like that.
Well, it's not just yours; it's mine too. So, well, all right. So let's kind of get into our last little tip and trick before we get into the nitty gritty, the stuff that's going to piss everybody off to no end.
Oh yeah.
Time to hunt. Arrive extra early. Extra early for WMAs that have a drawing to get on a unit or a blind. Because remember, when you're hunting public, you're not just hunting the game you're after, you're also hunting a spot, and it's hunting against other people in a way.
Yeah, and don't be married to your spot. I mean, I'm completely guilty of this. I like to claim my tenth of an acre and claim it hard. But, you can't be stuck in one place. That one day, that one dude shows up and beats you to it. You're going to have to change spots. And, if you don't have a backup plan or three, then, you're going to be screwed. You're not going to know where to go. If you're not prepared for like a run and gun style hunt, then I don't know what you would do at that point.
Yeah, I've been there before. There's been days where I've just had to pack it up and leave because all three of my backup plans were also hunted up. So
those days, definitely those days where like this past year, man, I was deer hunting and here comes all the duck hunters in, and they're taking my backup spots even if we're not on the same game because they're making loud noises and deer don't like that.
Yeah, and something else to do whenever it comes to getting there early is use the crowds to your advantage. If you can get there, say, super early and get in deeper, basically let all the people walking in the woods work as like a deer drive for you and push the deer to you. Or if everyone is posted up on a particular duck hole and sky blasting the heck out of it, but you've noticed the ducks before in the past try to get to this area that's way further back, harder to get to, well, go get in that spot and get there first and let those guys flare those ducks over there to you.
If you're going to do something like that where you're going to get there earlier on the side of, more whitetail oriented, then you're going to want to quiet your gear the best you can. You don't want to bust things out walking in so that hang on stand on your back, your lone wolf, whatever it is, your climbing sticks and your day pack, all clanking together. It's definitely an alarm system to everything in the woods. So quiet that the best you can, and practice your shooting in the gear you're going to hunt in. That's another big tip. A lot of us are guilty of, especially here in Texas and when it gets hot, we're not putting on that heavyweight jacket that we're going to be hunting in December. There's no way you're going to catch me in that most of the time, unless I'm going to get up early, get my jacket on, shoot about 3-4 arrows, then take it off, and then continue on my shoot. There we go. Problem solved.
Yeah, could you imagine going out to a skeet range and shooting in your duck hunting gear in August?
No, you're not catching me doing that.
No, that sounds like a heat stroke just waiting to happen.
Yeah, how about I put on like, I cut up an old one and put like one sleeve on and one shoulder on.
Well, I think you could maybe just cut it off at the elbow, make it.
Yeah, just whatever's going to come into contact with that weapon.
Yeah. And then another idea, it's not always available on pieces of public, but if you can, go hunt during the week. Most people work. Take a day off on a Wednesday and go be the only guy out there.
That's my favorite time to hunt public.
Yeah, mine too. I think we hunted a bunch after work even this year and wound up having the place 100% to it, just me and you, or just you or just me, depending on the different trips.
Yeah, and it's a lot nicer to see what the animals are doing with no human influence aside from yourself on that piece of property. They're going to act a whole heck of a lot different than when there's 10 guys on there.
Yeah, for certain. Well, you got any other tips or tricks you want to bring up before we go to angering the public hunting masses in Texas?
No, I think we covered all the ticks, trips, and whatever else you said.
Yeah, all the flubs I was making. It happens. Alrighty, so these are the types of public hunting land in Texas. This is not a 100% list. This is the types that I know of, have researched, and have hunted on.
There's, I mean, a very real possibility that anybody could pull something else out of the hat, and it's totally valid. That's why it's so hard to get an accurate acreage reading of what is public land in Texas, like we stated at the beginning.
Yeah, and if anybody knows something that's not on there, feel free to hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, email us, castblastgrillchill@gmail.com. You know, we're always looking for new places to hunt, especially ones that are off the beaten path.
Yeah, and you know, just thinking about this, we may even think about making an open source document where maybe some people could come in, add some stuff to kind of what we're going to post up as a show note, and find it in another place where maybe some people could add some stuff on that maybe they know about.
Yeah, maybe I can share a Google Doc or something where anyone and everyone who has something to offer, you know, maybe we can all use this as a group to try and better our hunting odds.
Yeah, and the kind of the Cast Blast Grilled Chilled cheat sheet.
Yeah. Well, so let's start with the cheapest. Let's try and go cheapest to most expensive hunting there is.
Okay.
With the caveats of we're going to kind of jump around on a few things.
All right, and all these sections are going to refer back to the types that we talked about in the first place, but more depth now.
Yes. So there's public hunting land that only takes your hunting license. So if you're a youth, $7, or an adult, $25.
Mm-hmm.
And those are your national forests and your national grasslands. And what'd you say that was 755,000 acres, give or take?
Nailed it.
All right. And that's free. You buy your hunting license, you can go hunt there. You can camp on it for free. During hunting season, it is in designated campgrounds only. But you can hike it, you can fish it, you can do whatever you choose to do, so long as it's legal on that land.
Yeah, and not all of them are in the designated hunt area, camping, or designated camping area stuff. I have run across a couple that you can go and camp wherever. But general rule of thumb with national forests especially, it's definitely a campsite only thing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest chunks of public land in Texas that are available to hunt on are going to be your national forest and grasslands.
Yeah, as far as a single entity, that is the biggest chunk and the cheapest as well. So that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll have the links to the U.S. Forestry Service here in these show notes. Do your legwork. Find you a spot. Yep. Use all these tips and tricks that we just fed you beforehand to find your spots. That's how we did it. You know, and if you see us out there, come say hi.
And to Jeremy.
Yeah, or to Trevor. I mean, we 9 times out of 10 we're out there together. So if you see me, you won't see us together in the woods, but if you find us at camp, we'll be there together.
I'm going to throw on my ghillie suit and get out there.
All right, well, you do that. Just make sure you wear your orange, because that's one of the rules and regulations on the National Forest is that you have to wear your orange.
See how important it is to read your rules and regulations, people.
Yep. Then there's a bunch of things that are kind of low-cost permits per unit or area. These are going to be things like Corps of Engineer land, National Wildlife Refuges, and stuff that's governed by the National Park Service. One prime example of this is the Big Thicket. That's the Big Thicket National Preserve. It's governed by the National Park Service. It's a $10 permit that you have to go pick up in person. And from there, I think you pick a unit to hunt in. It's been a couple of years since I went and pulled that permit. And it opens up a bunch of areas to hunt.
Yep.
It's thick, it's nasty, it's hard hunting. But for $10, it opens up a lot of land.
Yep. And permits through postcard draws as well. All of these are kind of niche areas, but are super low cost in permits. So these are going to be super cheap, like a postcard entry. So you would pay a small fee, and then you would hopefully draw that postcard and draw that tag or that unit rather, and then be allowed to hunt this area. Now, there's a ton of them on TPWD's website, and the links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of those that are Corps of Engineers where you can put in for a postcard for like a duck blind or for like a small game permit. And then there's also
same with state parks and stuff like that. So there's lots of entities that use this this quote unquote postcard draw.
and there's also the the TPWD postcard hunts that are in the drawing. What I like to call the big hunts. We'll talk about those here in a minute.
Sorry, go ahead.
And we'll talk about all those hunts here in a minute. But there's individual governing agencies, whether they be National Wildlife Refuges, the National Park Service, Corps of Engineers, and other entities throughout the state that have these put in for a drawing, and they're basically a guaranteed permit. You just put in for it and you get it. You just have to do the legwork to put in for it.
Most of the time, so the biologist is going to set that number and say, okay, yeah, you can afford to give out X number of tags for this small game tag, or pass or permit or whatever it is. But when I was going to say, when someone usually says a postcard hunt, I'm thinking about most of those big game animal tags and permits and everything else that you're going to usually draw off TPWD's website. But the ones on these, on the smaller and more not so thought of areas, are probably some of the best ones sometimes, because it's usually the closest thing to your house and it's super cheap, and the odds of drawing it are a lot higher.
Yeah, and then there's also in that same type of like lottery style hunt that you either put in with a postcard, or some of them you actually have to go to a Corps of Engineers office or regional headquarters to go put in for. And some of them may have a test to show proficiency with a weapon or an identifying game and things of those natures. There's a spot me and you've talked about hunting multiple times that the drawing just happens to be at a really, really bad time, and it's first come, first serve. So you got to be there pretty much on the day that they issue those permits, or else too bad, so sad.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these proficiency tests, it depends on the entity making them. I was just talking to a guy on a hike to hunt, and he was saying that he did one, and you had to hit inside of basically a tennis ball sized area on a target. This was for a whitetail hunt, and I've heard of other guys saying hit a pie plate. So it's proficiency tests are different for every different entity. I think if you're nervous about it, then put in the practice, man, before you go out and do these proficiency tests to make sure you're proficient. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, for sure.
So next on our list is the big book, the Bible, $48 APH. That is the annual public hunting permit. Now, this is what most people refer to as, I got my public lands permit.
Yeah, I got my Type 2. I got my public lands book.
Yeah, so it's formally called Type 2. A lot of people, if you're going to hear them refer to that, and they've probably been buying it a while. And now it is called the APH, the Annual Public Hunting Permit. So this is what's allowing you onto a lot of these public spaces that the state is leasing. There's WMAs on there. There's also some a lot of Forestry Service land stuff on there. There's a lot of stuff in this big book that you're going to get when you buy this $48 hunting permit. Now, the book, they send it to you in the mail, or if you buy this at the regional office, they're going to hand you the book right then and there. It's also available as a PDF. So, good stuff.
Yeah, and the link to the online interactive map will be in the show notes, because that is the easiest way, and the online interactive map is also in your TPWD Outdoor Annual app in your phone that you download. Now,
so this Bible is going to show you everything from all the specific areas, rough property lines, and and special regulations on game animals you can harvest, the seasons for those animals, this being special seasons as well, a lot of times, means and methods, anything and everything specifically for each piece of property and where to find the property.
Yeah, the book basically goes for probably 25 to 30 pages, maybe more, before it even gets to the first hunting property, breaking down all the state laws that are specific to the APH and all the different possible regulations and all the types of different maps and everything else in there. But now there's something really unique I want to say. Last season, the 2017-2018, was the 30th anniversary of the annual public hunting permit program, whether you call it Type 2 or the APH. It was started in 1987, and what did you say it said on the website about that? Because I just happened to notice that the big 30th anniversary on the book, but you said Texas Parks and Wildlife had something to say about it actually on the website, I guess.
Yeah, so it was founded in 1987. Yeah, it's been an inexpensive way to get families hunting, fishing, and camping in the outdoors. I think they said bird watching and all kinds of stuff on their website. So, yeah, it's a really cool 30th anniversary for them, and they also said formerly known as Type 2. So I think it's an awesome program.
And then they also have, what is that, the LPU, the limited permitted use?
Yeah, so the LPU is it's $12. It gives you access to hiking, fishing, camping, all that good stuff. So if you want to go out and just experience this without actually hunting, then you're more than welcome to, and you're paying $12 aside, instead of $48. If hunting's not your thing, if you like rock climbing, mountain biking, the $12 LPU is definitely for you. But still check those special regulations for stuff like if our bikes allowed or things like this allowed. So,
yeah, definitely. And like we mentioned earlier, we'll mention it again. The APH and LMU are both available wherever you get your hunting and fishing license. Make sure you spell out whenever you buy your hunting and fishing license, that you want this particular permit, and make sure that the person who you're getting it from checks the right box so you don't wind up with 24 hunting licenses in your pocket because the person working at Wally World doesn't know what they're doing.
Yep, absolutely. And it's happened to all of us, I think, like you said before. And yeah, just double check that they know what they're talking about. If they look confused, say, hey, could I take a look, and make sure you're clicking the right thing, or read them off to me and I'll let you know when you pick the right one.
Yeah, and to kind of circle back around to hunting license, since like I did before, make sure if you're a duck hunter and you don't buy your license at the TPWD regional office, that they actually check that HIP certification box.
Yeah.
Because I know guys who've gotten a couple reamings from game wardens because the person that they bought the license from didn't check the box.
Yep.
Alrighty, so that pretty much covers the big book. Let's kind of discuss the big book and like how it's broken down and how you use it. It's broken out into regions. You got the Panhandle, East Texas, Central Texas, the Piney Woods, the Big Bend area, the prairies and lakes. I think that's all of them.
Yeah, I believe so. And so, of course, there's going to be an index on this, and you're going to be able to pretty quickly find whatever you need.
Hey, I got my book right here, so let's see. I can tell you right now what the regions are.
There you go. Yeah, but this book is, it's the Bible is what it's nicknamed for everybody that's been using it, because it includes anything and everything. And if you don't have access to your phone, you haven't downloaded it, or you're just not using your phone because you're in the woods, you can take you can take a page out of it if you wanted to and bring it into wherever you're going. You can take the whole book with you and keep it. I keep mine in my truck. Mine rides under the center console. And so if I ever have any questions about something or forget a reg on the way to a property and don't have cell service, I'm pulling it out and double checking it.
Yeah, and see, I do kind of the exact opposite. I keep my book in here where I keep all my journals and stuff like that and do all my research and scouting, online, and I print out individual pages and individual units out of the book. So
yeah, I definitely don't rip out pages out of my book, just for the record.
No, I don't, but I used to carry it with me all the time, but since I have so many different vehicles I drive, inevitably one time a year I would be in the F-250 when I was in the Chevrolet, or I'd be in the Volkswagen and the book would be in the F-250. So
Yeah.
I started leaving the book in one spot and just printing out whatever I needed to go on whatever hunt and stuffing it in my bag before I left. So here are your regions in the book. You got Region 1, the Panhandle. Region 2, the Trans-Pecos. Region 3, Central Texas. Region 4, Dallas-Fort Worth. Region 5, the Piney Woods. Region 6, Austin-Waco. Region 7, Houston-Beaumont. And Region 8, San Antonio-Corpus Christi. And like each one of these regions is broken out with a map in the first part of the section and a list of each hunting area and the game available inside this book. So it's a quick breakdown to say, well, I want to go hunt this animal. You go to that graph and you go look and say, I want to go hunt turkey. Are there any turkey opportunities? And you go down the list of turkeys and, well, there's no turkeys here. So let me go to the next region over and look. Oh, well, cool, there's turkeys in this region on this property. And you thumb to that page in the book, and there you go. Now you have a public opportunity at turkeys.
Yep, and then when you get to that page, it's going to tell you when the season is for that, if there's a spring and fall available, if it's just a spring available, and the legal means and methods of harvesting that animal. So, I mean, tons of great stuff in this book. It's literally everything you need aside from just your general education, hunting license, stuff like that. I mean, it's going to tell you everything else you are required to have to come onto that property.
Correct. I mean, it is the Bible. It tells you everything you need to know. And it is what you need to hunt public in a easy, cost-effective, with the most bang for your buck.
Yeah. I mean, it is cheap, man. It is cheap for how much. If you were doing nothing else but hunting out of that book, I don't think there's any way in my lifetime that I could see every one of those places thoroughly. And I'm talking thoroughly.
I very seriously doubt it, because some of those places in that book are big.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if you just take this book and the free stuff, the stuff that's national forests and national grasslands, and roll it into there, there's no way.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy, so cheap, and it breaks it all down for you. I like to say it's dummy proof once you have the tools in your hand to use it.
And the other thing that this book, like I said, it's the Bible, but it's primarily your WMAs, your private dove leases, which is land that the state leases from private landowners, whether it be cattle pastures, cornfields, milo fields, grain fields, and different small game leases and land that is open to small game hunting. That's what this book is. There's big game in here. There's deer. I think there's mule deer in here. There's turkey in here. There's plenty of opportunity to hunt lots of things that's just in this book.
Absolutely. Now, I think we covered the big book. You want to move on to some big hunts, more specifically the Texas Parks and Wildlife, the draw hunts.
Yes.
And we were talking about earlier, when somebody generally says this to me, the first thing I think of is the e-postcard hunts. And we're going to talk about how to apply for them and what they are exactly.
Okay. I agree. So your e-postcard hunts, those are draw hunts. Those are hunts that everybody in the state can put in for. And I think all of your e-postcard hunts, I know all the ones I've ever put in for, they're actually free. They don't cost anything. You just fill out the form online, you submit it, you get a number back, and when you are lucky enough to draw one, you'll get an email back from Texas Parks and Wildlife saying, "Dear Mr. Such and Such, you were drawn for such and such hunt."
Yep. And some of the permits once you draw this hunt do actually come with another fee. It's a small fee. They do vary from game to game and place to place. I've seen them in upwards of $180 for some places in West Texas for some big game animals, all the way down to very minuscule or no permit fee at all.
Yes. And then there's your standard draws, and those are $3 a piece, and they range from everything from feral hogs all the way up to, you know, the Aoudad, the Scimitar, Oryx, the, you know, all your different exotics, plus, you know, all your Texas native big game species. It's the same deal, except at the end of it, you've got to go through and maybe unselect a few because you've done selected maybe 100 of them or
All of them.
50 of them. And at $3 a piece, it does eventually add up. So I try to generally set my budget beforehand. And I set a budget of usually, depending on the year, between $25 and $55 for.
Yeah, mine's about, on a high year, it's about 50.
Yeah, well, that the $55 to $5 for my 3 chances at my lifetime license.
Yeah, there you go. And it's and this also comes up usually. Everyone's a little bit different, and it comes out a little bit different time depending on the entity putting it on. But it's usually somewhere in summertime that you start putting in for these.
Yeah, you generally start putting in for these in the middle of June, and they generally close, depending on the game, by the middle
Usually
of August.
before your license. Yeah, before you buy your license, definitely.
Yeah, and some of the later ones close, I think, either the end of August or the end of September.
Yeah, there
and
are a few stragglers in there for sure.
Yeah, and it changes from year to year. And then there's a couple of big hunts, you know, and these permits are $10 a piece to attempt to draw, but it's the cheapest shot you'll ever have at a bighorn sheep. They didn't do one last year because of the restocking efforts that are going on, but these are guided hunts, sometimes on private land, sometimes on public land, with experienced hunters, experienced guides, and these go for $10 a piece. And I don't believe there's any other fees associated with them. I know the Texas Big Three or Big Grand Slam or whatever it is the bighorn sheep, mule deer, whitetail deer, and pronghorn antelope hunt. And you get all those tags for your $10 entry fee.
That needs no explanation.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if you're not putting in for it, I don't know why you're not. You should be.
Yeah. Now, also got some exotic permits, also $3, also $3 to draw, and the hunt fees are at usually $80.
Yeah, and those are the ones that are on the National Wildlife Refuge systems. That's like that Nilgai hunt they were going to do down in
South
the Laguna Atascocita down there that we were going to try and do that was going to be first serve, first come, first serve, that I was going to go down there and try and get us, but they wound up changing it because there was so much interest in it and changed it to a lottery.
Yep. So being that they had lottery, meaning that they had less tags than people interested.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a 8-hour drive and the only way to put in for it was to be there in person, that basically cut me out of it. I wasn't going to take a day off of work for a lottery. For a guaranteed shot, I already had my vacation time in.
I think that just about covers, draw hunts in a nutshell. I mean, that's super general, but once again, the links for this type of stuff is going to be on the show notes. So you check out the website and just browse through some of these hunts. And I just start daydreaming about a lot of them. So browse through them, make sure you're not going to miss a deadline to put in for them, and, throw $20 at it. I mean, and $20 will get you quite a few entries.
And on top of that, all this money goes back into conservation. It's all, going back into improving habitat and everything else.
There you go.
There is a couple other things that are kind of in these permit draws. The United States Forestry Service antlerless deer draws are also in here. And there's a couple other of those types of permits that are available in this same section on TPWD's website. So if you're looking for something like that, this would be the same page to look for on the website. And once again, the link for the general overview of this particular stuff will be all there, in the show notes. And be expecting it to be updated any day now. Today is June the 5th of 2018. And I would expect, within the next couple of weeks, it to be updated and all the new draws to be up there and for them to start taking applicants. The
I
other
would say
thing,
somewhere probably coming up around the 15th. I would assume it's usually somewhere close to in there. I wish that they could at least post some dates and stuff beforehand and not, accept any payment or any entries. just so you could know what to prepare for and to kind of daydream about. I just like daydreaming.
Yeah, well, when I was talking with the guy at TPWD, getting him set up to come on the podcast here for the next episode, he was basically saying they're in crunch time right now, getting all the finalized stuff out right now for all these draws, making sure it's all right and all the information's correct. Because he said the last thing they want to do is put out something that's incorrect or not up to date or not right.
Yeah. I mean, just on the hunter side of it, I wish that there was like, after season they start thinking about stuff, and then when they kind of get an idea, maybe put out like a proposal thing and just say, hey, here's some teasers of what might happen this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of why I think they leave the stuff up from the previous year, because I think a lot of stuff just rolls over year to year.
Yeah.
But another cool thing that's really awesome about them leaving up the stuff from the previous year, it actually has the draw odds factored in and the success rate. So how many people put in for the hunt, how many permits were issued, and the success rates on those hunts.
Yeah, and that gives you a good idea of what you want to put in for and the chances of, me drawing something. That's a great tool to have. If it's super low odds, but it's a really cool hunt, maybe, throw $3 at it every year. But more often I'm probably going to put in for things that I stand a better chance of hunting soon.
Yeah, and also things that interest
have a high
me.
Success rate.
Well, not only high success rates, but things that are, more feasible for me to hunt. Me going up to, let's say, the northern panhandle to go hunt antelope. Yeah, I'll put in for one that's a high success rate, but the odds are long. So that way if I, get to go out there on it, I'm going to be successful. But I'm not going to put in for something that has a 10% success rate, and more permits up there, because, that's a 12-hour drive for me to go up there. If I'm going to put in for something like that, I want to, something that has good success rates.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about military bases, and most of this info is super specific to each base. Now a lot of them do have opportunities for you to get out there and do some hunting. Some of them are, you have to be active duty or a vet or something like that. A lot of them you don't have to do that, but each one's specific. So do the legwork for yourself, and all the show notes will be up. The links for that will be in the show notes. So,
yeah, that's kind of on you. The only thing I'm even kind of remotely familiar with is, Fort Hood in Central Texas. But aside from that, like hunting military bases, I know it's an option, but it's never an option I've personally explored.
Yeah, and same here. And I've talked to people that have hunted those areas. Never really asked too many specifics on it, just because I haven't explored that yet.
Yeah. And so we'll just kind of put a pin in that one. And if anyone has any advice, to give us about it, we're all ears. We'd like to hear about it. And kind of the last place that's available to hunt. And, it wasn't broken down in the initial places to hunt, because it's really not a place. It doesn't have a name. It's it's public water. There is hundreds of miles of navigable river and navigable bays and coastal marshes in Texas that, so long as it is a navigable waterway, it's legal to hunt. And in most cases, it's free.
Yeah, I mean, this is including lakes, rivers, bays, coastal marshes. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff out there. Some of what's considered a navigable waterway can be hard to find out the answer to. The best way that I've found, and I believe that you found as well, if you can't find it stated anywhere specifically, is just call the game warden and make sure before you go out that is indeed true and that you are allowed to hunt there. I think that's one of the best resources to do for this scenario.
Yeah, and another good way to check and see if an area is legal to hunt would be to contact the river authority, whether it be the Corps of Engineers on a lake, or if it's, a river authority, the Lower Colorado River Authority, the Trinity River Authority, the Brazos River Authority. You name your different river authority in Texas, and there's probably a governing body that handles the legality of that particular river.
And They are relatively responsive, and there's usually somebody there to answer your call and hopefully be able to answer that question for you. If not, once again, you can always go back to the game warden.
Yeah, and that's where the buck stops for real anyway, is with the game warden. And also, a lot of these different river authorities and Corps Engineer websites, if you dig around long enough and hard enough, you can find public hunting information or legal areas to hunt on their website. It's just not in the front. It's tucked away, usually on some PDF way back on like 20 clicks down the website. But it's there if you dig for it. And then some of these river authorities and stuff, they have, permit draws, much like we were talking about with, the Corps Engineers and stuff on some of these lakes and rivers and stuff where they have either permanent blinds or the ability to erect a seasonal blind, on some of these lakes and rivers.
Yep. As well as, they have a lot of them have, boat launches available to use. A lot of times that you pay a small fee. I know at somewhere that I use, I get an annual pass, and it saves me a ton of money because I go down there all the time, not only to hunt, but to fish and recreate. So if there's an option like that, that's also a great thing to do and save some money. Just buy a season pass if it's available.
Yeah, and there's quite a few free boat ramps in the state of Texas, whether they be like kind of right away boat ramps, wherever a highway crosses a river, or, at the end of a dead end road into a bay, or a lot of bait camps and places along those lines. They'll have a boat ramp where, if you just buy some bait from them, you can launch your boat for free.
Yep. And I've also been in the situation that if you're hiring a guide that uses that, a lot of times you don't have to pay to park in their lot or whatever it is if you just talk to that bait shop. I've had that happen before as well.
Yeah.
Now you were talking about digging around on the website for some stuff, and a lot of these river authorities and stuff like that. Aside from waterways, there's a lot of hidden gems in a lot of different places that don't necessarily stick out as a hunting opportunity or a trapping opportunity, things of that nature, but are public land, and you can potentially have the ability to hunt them.
Yeah, there's quite a few of those out there, and yeah, that's the phrase I always use for them is hidden gems or diamonds in the rough, because they're places that you wouldn't think that you could go hunt. You're probably not going to go deer hunting on these places, but you might be able to go shoot a hog with a bow and arrow, or maybe take a small game with maybe a rimfire or archery equipment. And these are county parks, city parks, and different areas that are under, we'll call them municipality governance.
Yeah, I like it.
And once again, this is things that take a lot of digging to find. It's definitely not going to say in such and such county park you can go out there at dawn and dusk and hunt pigs with a bow and arrow.
No, this is something that you're more or less going to have to reach out and maybe, ask some questions about to the right person. These can be, some harder ones to find, but if you do find them, they're usually close to where you are, and, there's no hunting pressure on them, or, there's a lot of good scenarios if you get to find one of these. A good way, if you have any questions about who governs or what municipality is over a green space area, whether that's a park or whatever, is to use the GIS maps that we talked about earlier in this episode and go and find it on the map, click on it, and depending on the interactive map that whatever that county is shows, it should show you who's governing what municipality. There's different layers on there, but it should get you in the right place and the person to talk to, or at least start.
And I'll use a prime example of this, one that I know I'm probably going to piss somebody off with it, but I'm sorry, I'm not talking about your specific spot. This is a spot that I hunt on the coast, and it's just this one weird little patch of yellow on the GIS map, and it's Texas public school land down on the coast, and it's just public land down there, and it's owned by the state, and it's intermixed with a bunch of federal land and state park land. but it's just this one little section down there that's still held by the Texas School Trust, and it's perfectly legal to hunt it. I talked to the game warden, I talked to the county commissioner, and I talked to the county judge. Not the judge himself, but his office. And everybody said, yeah, you're good to hunt there. So that is a prime example of one of these areas that's under municipality rule, that's public land. It doesn't really have a quote-unquote immediately ruling authority sitting there on it. But there you go. There's one of the things to look for.
Yeah, and if you do find yourself getting access to one of these, it may be a good idea to have some type of written consent from whatever governing party there is, or at least the game warden. Let him know beforehand what you're doing, where you're hunting, and who you've got permission from, and have a reference ready to go for him, as well as have his number in your back pocket, because, you know, hunting a city park or trapping on it, whatever you have permission to do, that may be quite a big opportunity for someone that does not have, a positive view on hunting to come up and potentially be giving you some hunter harassment. So good thing to have in your back pocket if you are going to do one of these things.
Yeah, and if you are going to do one of these things and you do run into a situation like that, this is definitely a kill 'em with kindness moment. You know,
Yes.
I don't care if he's the biggest anti and the biggest jerk in the world. You need to be the most polite, syrupy sweet that you can ever be, because, you know, this is the kind of thing that's going to leave a lasting impression on this person that's, you know, potentially seeing you drag out a dead hog out of the same park where his kids go swing on the swing set after school. So
That may mess up your hunting opportunity. One bad letter from one person to let's say a city office about somebody hunting on the parks that had permission, but was being very nasty and immature and maybe swearing or something at this person. That could ruin your opportunity and other people's opportunity to take advantage of this. So definitely a kill 'em with kindness type of thing, as well as what Jeremy was saying. The perception.
Yeah, it's one of those things where just because you're right doesn't mean that you got to prove that you're right. You know, there's many times in life where we all know that we're right and we're doing the right thing, where you can just sit back and smile and know that whenever it all comes to a head, that you're going to be the one that's vindicated, not this other person.
Yep, I agree. So, guys, this has been part 1 of our four-part series on public lands, and we got some cool stuff coming to you. But in the meantime, we will get these notes up on the Cast Grill Chill website in the show notes, and I believe probably on some social media as well. So, in the meantime, guys, get outside, enjoy it.
Yeah, enjoy this scorching weather we have here before. You know, I got to thinking about it. We are just a couple short months now away from hunting season. We just ticked over into June. That means we got July and August. I mean, we're almost in the home stretch. It seemed like just the other day duck depression was real because hunting season was over, and now I can actually see it glimmering on the horizon once again.
There you go.
All right, guys, get outside and enjoy yourself and have a good time. Take the kids out camping, fishing, something. Go have some fun outside. Later.